Welcome back. You are tuned to the Labor Forum here at WRFG 89.3 FM. We have two more great guests in our studio today. We have Asma El-Huni. Hi, Asma.
Hi.
And Patricio Cambias has been here
Hello.
before.
Yes.
So you both are students at Georgia State. You both are active in the struggle around Turner Field and the relationship between the buyer of that property, Georgia State, and the president. Mr. Becker. And so let's first start talking about that. Because both of you have been engaged in a number of activities on the campus in particular to try to ensure that the Georgia State University purchase of this huge piece of property will actually have a good benefit to neighbors in the Mechanicsville, Peoplestown, blanking on Pittsburgh,
Somerville.
Neighborhoods that have been devastated by not one stadium, not two stadiums, three stadiums, and for more than 50 years have really had to bear the burden of massive traffic, dislocation of folk, no infrastructure development, etc. So why don't the two of you talk? The property's been sold. What's happening now? And I guess Asma was both of you were at the Georgia State Student Government meeting, but why don't you backtrack a little bit and talk about really the long range, how many, kind of like how the students have played a role in trying to win this fight.
So basically we first got involved back in September because of a rally that residents were having at Becker's office at Centennial Hall on campus. And basically me and Asma went, and we saw that there was maybe like 5 or so students. And we just felt we felt obliged to do more, seeing that, well, this is implicating us, our tuition, our university president, our university itself, and it's happening right in front of us, so we decided to join in. And since September, I think we've created something of a movement on campus, and it's grown. We've gotten 1,000 petition signatures, almost 1,000 petition signatures last semester that we're going to continue getting this semester. We've had classroom presentations. We've had residents come in and speak to students at different club organizations. We basically have just been trying to raise consciousness of the fact that students have a say over what our university does in our name and on our dime. And if we choose to do something about this radical displacement, then we actually have a lot of power in this situation. And I think we flexed some of that recently at the SGA meeting. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to start off by saying it is very difficult to ever meet President Becker because he refuses to sit with ordinary students. And I say ordinary because he will only talk to SGA members. And so we decided that we would join the meeting, the SGA meeting, where he would be present. And we listened to him complete his talk. But even before we walked in, what was interesting is that police officers actually came up to me and 2 other people from USAS, United Students Against Sweatshops, and said hello, and we said hello. And he said, "Do you know why we're here?" And I said, "No, why?" And he said, "For you guys." So yeah, they wanted to intimidate us. It's a form of bullying to keep us quiet. That did not stop us.
What did he say he was going to do when you stood up?
Well, he said, oh yeah, he actually said, we're here for you, so when you get up, we're going to take you out, and we're going to ban you once again, but this time, you might not be able to come back.
Wow.
I said thank you, and he left, and I thought, that's not going to stop me from talking to my president.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm just going to say that what actually happened. So we were sitting, we all agreed to go there. We had printed out questions for this, we made a bunch of copies and passed them out to the senators for them to, if they wanted to, ask them themselves
Yes.
to the President Becker, since he was going to reserve questions only for the senators, right? And we had all come as a group to sort of just be there and witness it, right? And me and Asma, we sat together right here like this, and she was texting me, asking me like, should I do something? Should I do something? And I was like, I mean, sure, do what you got to do.
Well, I
And-
wanted to ask him my question because he ignores my emails. He's been ignoring our latest actions to try to get him on the table. So I'm like, the reason why I was texting, I just wanted to make sure it was okay with the group so they won't be mad at me if I stand up and ask my question. That's all it was, but I wanted to
No, what
really...
I thought was amazing was, and I asked her, why do you want to do something right now, you know? Like, as Jamie, we haven't really planned for this, you know? And she then, what she said, and she sold me on the spot, was, I have to let them know that threats won't work.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I said, if we do not, they will know that they can intimidate students. And this is the tactic they will continuously use. So if we do not, if we comply and just like say nothing, then they know this is how we're going to treat students.
And then so 30,000 views later on the video that we posted, and then WABE, I believe, did a story, and CBS Channel 46 has done a story.
And WRFG.
And the WRFG is reporting. Yeah, I mean, it's just, they expose themselves. They expose themselves. This is how they view students. They view us, this is how they view us as what they want us to be. They want us to be passive, they want us to be obedient, and they want us to, even if our own consciousness is telling us we have to say something and ask a question, to shut up and just sit there and take it. And so we felt very necessary to just kind of flip that and say, no, actually, we're going to actually use this against you and actually use it to empower us. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to also mention the way we were treated is indicative of how the residents are treated and being ignored and silenced. So it's very much connected. So I think it's important to make that connection. There was a reason why the police were there. They knew the subject was the CBE. They wanted to make, I'm sorry?
CBA.
CBA, yeah, the Community Benefits Agreement. That's what we're asking for, negotiated binding community benefits agreement. And so that's why I believe the violence and the way that they carried themselves the way they did.
Let's go back to really the core of the issue, which is the Georgia State, along with some development companies, Carter and a few others, have purchased the entire Turner Field area, parking lots, the stadium, etc. And although the residents in these neighboring communities spent over 2 years doing surveys, doing studies, talking to residents about what it was they would want if this stadium area was being redeveloped, a sale agreement was done that absolutely ignores everything.
Yep.
So it has just come recently out that in the sale agreement, even though President Becker and the others, Mayor Reed and all kinds of people have said, oh, this is gonna be great,
Yep.
it's gonna be great, take our word for it, it's gonna be great.
Yep.
Sounding like somebody else we know at a high position. That, in fact, not so great. So could you talk about what is really contained in this sales agreement that does not meet what the residents wanted?
They have absolutely nothing on affordable housing, absolutely nothing on that. The only thing that may be slightly beneficial is there is a requirement to ensure that businesses include 20% minority women in their businesses. That's about it. But there's nothing about infrastructure saving them from the floods. There's nothing about affordable housing. There is nothing to help the community. Nothing about job training. So there's no benefit to the community.
Yeah, I mean, if you rewind to 2015, when Carter and Becker's people were first having meetings with community and residents, there were multiple times where residents were grilling them on questions, saying, are you going to include these things? How do we know this is going to benefit this? And there were a few times where it got into like a shouting match, right? And the way that story is reported, I remember reading it from the EJC, it was like, oh wow, really angry residents, and here's a developer just doing all
Trying to
they,
do the good
doing all they can, right? Well,
to bring down, to get rid of blight and to bring good things.
exactly, and all these, again, promises and assurances, we hear it over and over again. And then, yeah, this is what this document proves, that the entire time, ever since the beginning, the very beginning, they've made sure that they've intentionally left out anything protecting exactly what we're fighting for. And I think it's intentional because, again, Carter, we all know, owns Atlantic Station. They want this to be another Atlantic Station. They want this area to be Buckhead for rich people.
Yeah, and today, actually, we were reminded by a resident, Allison, of the previous history of gentrification around Atlanta, and she talked about her story of living in one city that got gentrified, being moved, that got gentrified, being moved, and I believe she mentioned 3 times.
She went from 04th Ward to Summerhill to Peoplestown, and now they don't know where to go.
Yeah, and so when President Becker says he doesn't plan on displacing residents, our question is, how are you ensuring, or how are you going to keep that promise without anything to ensure that doesn't happen? And a lot of people are confused because we keep throwing out the word CBA, Community Benefits Agreement, without knowing this is negotiable. And so basically it's coming to the table and saying, hey, these are some things we can do to ensure these people don't get displaced. These are some things we can do to benefit the community. And so maybe we should talk about like some examples of so for example, displacement, what tends to happen is taxes rise, right? And people can't pay their taxes, so they get displaced. And so one of the things that the CBA is asking for is circuit breakers, which is if any resident pays more than 30% of their income goes to taxes, there's a cap. It just stops there. And that's way they ensure that they have enough money to stay in their homes. That's just an example of one way.
In order to pay for that, the developers can dedicate a small fraction of the total cost of the development into a revenue stream, into a fund that will yearly help for people to pay for rising values, essentially letting them keep their homes.
And to get some benefit after years of bad roads, broken sidewalks, no recreation facilities, no grocery store, no good transportation, you could just go on and on. Mm-hmm. And now, the plan, sure, everybody'd like to live there where there's parks and nice things. But it'll be at the cost of seniors and others, working class families that have been there for decades.
Right.
Yeah. And it's happening right now. They are planning construction. They want to play. The football team wants to play there this fall. The new whatever stadium it's going to be called. They're putting the name up for grabs, I think, for the highest bidder, corporate donor. So they might get a new name. I think maybe the SunTrust already has a stadium, but
they would like to have 2.
Right, have both. So yeah, it's happening right now. It's happening right in front of our eyes. The race and class dynamics are shifting very much by design. And Georgia State students right now have the unique power and leverage to insert ourselves in this and actually make like a lasting generational difference.
And I can just, one closing remark, of course, which is that Georgia State is one of the most diverse, or is the most diverse campus, and is a campus largely of people of color. And many of the students, no doubt, are in neighborhoods that either have been impacted by gentrification, will be impacted by gentrification, and so they're really, it's a personal fight, I would say, for many Georgia State students.
Yeah, can I say that? Yeah, there's a good amount of, that we've talked to who live in the area, who know people who live in the area, you're absolutely right. And then this point of diversity being a sticking point for GSU's marketing, I think it's incredibly ironic that they're spearheading this multi-million-dollar gentrification project, which would take away that essential character that apparently we advertise to future students. And in fact, credit to Tasia Troutman, who gave me this point, that it's taken away the essential blackness of the campus. And there's so many students right now who can't even afford, the reason why we commute is because we already can't afford to live downtown and be on campus. And this is only going to further push commuter students away, who are also working people. It's very strange. Who do they want this school to be for?
Right. And the neighborhood. All right, we're going to take a little break. No, we aren't.
No,
We're
good.
not.
We're good on breaks. I just wanted to mention that, as a Georgia State student, the propaganda campaign that Georgia State has going on all their television screens in terms of this Turner Field development thing is very. It has montages of a community sitting down there's like a montage of a black hand on a piece of paper, but that's about the only only black person you see this entire thing, and these people smiling, the way they get the signal to interview him, to give him his side of the things, because he had to demand it, because the signal was like documenting a lot of what USAS was doing. It's so unfortunate, because when you talk to someone on campus who doesn't necessarily know anything about this CBA, they are confused, because they're like, I'm for this development, and then the propaganda campaign has put people like USAS on the side of being anti-development and anti-progression for the university, as a whole. And so that's like what's like constantly being combated to, is that we're having to have people understand that like there's a responsibility for the university. This is not an anti-development. This is a development with inclusion.
Yeah, and I think more and more students are.
Yeah.
They're seeing this very wide open contradiction, and it was like very much exemplified by their mishandling of you. Like it really symbolizes this whole thing of like the school wants to put this issue under the rug, and more students are just simply wondering now, why can't we sign a CBA? This is good for everyone, right? Becca, you say you don't want to displace people. You've told us that. And then at the same time, you refuse to sign a binding agreement. I think more and more students now are seeing
And it's not just students. Teachers have also contacted us as well, and they want to support and come out. So I think if President Becker doesn't come to the table, I think that he's going to be in trouble. I mean, just like from staff, and not only staff and students, but also representatives who are on board now, who had no clue what was going on, are now asking questions. So I think we're much closer to a CBA, and hopefully Becker will see that it's only reasonable to be a good neighbor and sit down and negotiate a binding CBA.
Okay, we're gonna move now to yesterday. So for folks who didn't see or hear it on the news or on Facebook or any place else, Atlanta joined a call across the country with dozens and dozens and dozens of airports, large and small, in huge demonstrations. I mean, packed like sardine demonstrations in front of airports, denouncing the ban on refugees, people from desperate, war-torn countries, most of whom have been terrorized by U.S. military bombs and war, and also green card holders,
Thank you.
people with visas, students who've got student visas, all now supposedly not welcome
Yes.
and being detained and or turned back to whence they came. So I just think just about almost all of us in this room were there yesterday at the one in Atlanta.
Yes.
And so I want to just sort of have us talk about what it is that we are sensing. And I'll start with you, Asma, because you played a role in organizing yesterday. And the large turnout of Muslims, the large turnout of whole families, the incredible diversity of age, from tiny babies to grandmothers and great-grandmothers. What is it that you are sensing in this response to this particular executive order of Trump?
I think this executive order is it's very clearly racist. It's very in-your-face racist. And so those who used to be quiet are now finally realizing that they really can't be quiet. And so even those who are or may be impacted directly by this ban, who have family members, they were out yesterday. My eyes teared because I got to see Muslim women crying, looking at the crowds and like crying, and so it was a beautiful sight to see all this support from many different people. But I mean, clearly it's not far from what we did to the Japanese during World War II, and to ban Muslims from certain countries. And even when asked, are you going to let some Muslims in? He said, yes, some. And he said, which ones? The Christians? And from these countries? Which people from these countries? And he said, yeah, the Christians. So clearly it is a Muslim ban. And I don't think it'll hold, because I don't think people are going to tolerate it, not because he's just a good person and he's going to stop, but I think people are going to speak out, come out, and let him know that this is just not something they're going to allow happen. Recently there's been a Supreme Court order to, people are like, oh, the ban is lifted. Well, no, the ban is still in place.
It was a federal
100%.
judge.
Yes.
Federal
The ban is still in place. The only thing that's different now is that those who are currently in transit can continue and come, but it's literally affects everyone still, but it's just the people in transit. That's the only change, so let's not think the ban is lifted. It is not. It is still very much in place.
Anybody else who was there want to say something?
Well, Dawn's right up there.
No, but
I was there.
Yeah, no, you were one of the speakers, I guess.
Yes.
And you gave it your all. You always give it your all. When they give you that megaphone, you were like loud. Walk away with your.
different person.
No, very much the same person. I just questioned how much of yourself you give out to the audience and if they reciprocated back, really. Because your voice is always so hoarse when you're done.
I didn't know you spoke.
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
I definitely couldn't hear you.
Yesterday, it was beautiful. It was really, I think that Donald Trump, the best thing for this country really in the last few days has been his idiocy. It has, because what it's doing is it's uniting us. And it's bringing us together in ways that we never were before. The turnout yesterday was beautiful, and from standing up there and speaking and doing the Asada chant, I was so, it was more powerful than it ever was, than I felt it, because when I looked out and I saw Muslim faces and I saw just black and brown faces, Latino, and I just can't even explain the overwhelming feeling that I had, like this is the resistance. And this is what resistance is, and this is what it means, that we all stand up together and that we're fighting against this, like, I don't even have words for him. And everybody has some, you run out of words when you talk about him, you really do. But we're standing up against this capitalist, imperialist,
Racist,
misogynist, everything. And we, the people, are doing it. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to continue to grow. And I just, hey, keep doing what you're doing, Trump, because you don't know what you're in for.
Yeah, and I think one of the most beautiful things that I witnessed yesterday was that most of the speakers didn't limit it to Muslims. People out there for the Muslim community, but it was so beautiful that we remember the intersectionality of all our struggles, and Black Lives Matter issues were continuously raised, and also undocumented people, and just so I thought that was really beautiful that it wasn't, even though people came out for Muslims, the speakers, most of them made sure that they connected our struggles, and they're one. Our struggles are really one.
So I'm going to ask Christopher, because most people think that all of the action was out in the front of the building, and that is what the media showed on television. I also have to say,
Christopher let his own ass.
I have to say that it was interesting. I watched the news to sort of see how the Atlanta media was going to cover it. And for those that didn't watch, what was the most important thing that happened on Sunday? It was the Falcons leaving to go to Houston. And so there was many more minutes of coverage of the pep rally that took place. And people are sports fans, okay. But the placement, the question is the placement by the local television stations. And that, of course, is who pays for advertising. It is not our demonstrations. And so it was very clear why it was placed the way it was. But there was no way, when they even showed just the fewest pictures, that you could not see the incredible crowd.
Yes. Around 7,000 people. Around 7,000 people showed up. Yes.
And on just a couple of days' notice, and based again on social media.
Yes, and Mayor Reed made a presence, I'm just going to call this out.
Yeah.
Mayor Reed made a
Yes.
presence, and
Put him
I
up.
don't know why he was even there if he wasn't going to declare Atlanta a sanctuary city. So Mayor Reed, I'm calling you out right now.
Yes.
There was no need for you to be there if you weren't going to declare Atlanta a sanctuary city.
It was
Photo op.
it was his
the choir.
presence that created that break
That
open
chant.
into
Totally.
into the
Into
the
into the
airport.
airport. Had he not arrived, we would have not have been able
Yeah.
to break into there. We followed him and his troop all the way inside, and it was like, you know, his presence that broke us into there.
So I was in line getting chicken, and I see you guys coming in with the
Yeah.
I was so hungry. But yeah, and I think he was there, and he inadvertently, or like the "Make Atlanta a Sanctuary City" chant
Yeah,
spread throughout the
Yeah.
whole
Yes.
crowd
yeah.
while he was right there, which
Yep.
is funny because he
He
came
was
out
ashamed.
and said-
He walked away.
So I just want to say, folks, if you want to always hear the folks that are doing the stuff in the city, you turn to WRFG and you turn to the Labor Forum. Because these are the people that are fighting for workers, they're fighting for every community, LGBTQ, religious groups, immigrants, Muslims, undocumented, the people who make up this city. And as our song at the beginning, it's the people who do the work. And so in this studio, in fact, are the people who do the work of creating and inspiring movements. So we got like 2 minutes left, less than. Can you all give us any of the contact information for any of the organizations that you talked about?
So yeah, if you are interested in finding out more about the student campaign at Georgia State University, you can come visit us at facebook.com/USASGSU. That's facebook.com/USASGSU. And the website for the Turner Field Community Benefits Coalition is the Turner Field, I think it's turnerfieldcoalition.org. And they have a bunch of great information about everything that's been happening. So.
And CARE Georgia, the Council on American Islamic Relations, and I work for them. You can go to their website at www.caregeorgia.com. And yesterday's organizing event, the protest, was organized by me and also Hillary Holly, also Idil Hussein and Sarah Khalid and the great Azadeh Shashahani. So, yeah.
Women power.
Yes!
All right, so thank you again. So here in the studio, we had Asma El-Huni and Patricio Cambias. And we want to thank them for being on air today. I want to thank all of the team of the Labor Forum. Our special guest, Tiffany, sitting in the back. And we're glad to see Annette here again. And please tune in again next Monday. We'll be here 4 to 5 with another great show. Stay tuned now for the for Democracy Now!